Okay, so if you're new, I'm just going to let you know how this works. So I did bold predictions from last week. You can watch the video. I'll put the link in the description down below. But if you didn't watch that video, you should go watch it. But I do bold predictions, and then the next week I reflect on how I did on the bold predictions, and then I make new bold predictions. But I do only quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense. Enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to Fantasy Football by Ben. Today, I'll be talking about my bold predictions from last week, and then I'll be doing new bold predictions for this week. Alright, so let's start off with the bold predictions from last week. So last week I predicted that Tua would be a top 10 quarterback, which he wasn't. If he would have played like Justin Herbert and got the rushing touchdown, he would have, because they had very similar numbers. He would have been top 10 QB last week, but he wasn't. For my second pick, I said that Nick Chubb would be the top scoring running back, coming off of his knee injury, which he wasn't either, but he was pretty close. I mean, if he would have got that second rushing touchdown, he would have been right there. I mean, Alvin Kamara had 3 total touchdowns, so he wouldn't have passed him. And then my third prediction was that Christian Kirk would finish as a top 10 wide receiver for 4 straight weeks, which he didn't. And then my tight end prediction was that Logan Thomas would be a top 5 tight end, which he wasn't. But I did almost get the yards right. I said 75 and he got 66. Caught 4 passes for 66 yards, which isn't a bad week for a tight end. And number 5, I picked the defense, and I picked the Browns. And yes, they did not finish in the top 5. They finished 13th. They scored 7 points. Not bad. It wasn't a bad pick if you played the Browns, but they didn't finish as a top 5 defense this week like I was hoping. But they did do a very good job against Deshaun Watson, and I kind of predicted that. And also, Duke Johnson didn't do very well, and I also predicted that he wouldn't do very well. Alright, let's move on to my bold predictions for Week 11. We're going to start off with the quarterback position, and this week, I'm not going with a rookie, even though I have in the past 3 weeks, or 3 out of 4 weeks, because I didn't do it for 1 week. This week, I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. He will have the best fantasy performance he's ever had this year, this season. So for this season, Aaron Rodgers' best performance came in Week 1 against the Vikings when he threw for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns, and had a total of 30.2 points, which is a very solid week, and he was probably quarterback 1, 2, or 3 that week. But this week, he will surpass that total and have over 30.2 fantasy points against one of the greatest defenses in the NFL, if not the greatest defense in the NFL against quarterbacks. Well, right now, they're the best defense against quarterbacks. But Aaron Rodgers in the past has been very bad against good defenses, and so this is going to be a test of how good Aaron Rodgers is, I guess. And so I think he's going to have a great performance, but it might hurt if Devontae doesn't play, which we don't know yet. And so we'll see. I have Aaron Rodgers finishing his best performance. This is just a bold prediction of not like top-rated quarterback or anything, but it'll be his best performance, I think, this week. That's my bold prediction. For my running back, I have Jonathan Taylor. In the same game that Aaron Rodgers is doing extremely well, Jonathan Taylor is on the other side going to be doing extremely well. I have Jonathan Taylor to have his best fantasy football day, which his highest fantasy game came against the Vikings in Week 2, and he ran for 26 carries for 101 rushing yards and a touchdown. Also, he had 2 catches for 9 yards. The last 5 backs that the Packers have faced have all had over 10 fantasy points, including Cooks, 47.2 points, and Ronald Jones, 25.1. James Robinson last week had 12.2. David Johnson the week before that had 14.4. 2 weeks before that. And then Jerick McKinnon the week before that had 14.3. All of them got into the end zone except for James Robinson last week. This will be a big week for Jonathan Taylor, and it'll help him trend in the right direction. I have Jonathan Taylor finishing as a top 10 back, which he hasn't done since Week 5, and we're on Week 11. So it'll be a big week for Jonathan Taylor, I think, this week. Moving on to the wide receiver position, I have DK Metcalf. Last time they played Arizona, DK had 2 catches for 23 yards and was hardly targeted. Last week, he had 2 catches for 28 yards. I don't think those games really matter because DK Metcalf didn't get targets, therefore he didn't produce. And so Russell Wilson knows as much as anybody else that he needs to target DK Metcalf more, and I think that Russell Wilson knows what he did last game, DK did last game against Arizona, and DK knows. And so I think this could be a huge week for DK Metcalf. And the 2 weeks in between those 2 weeks, he had 34 points and 20 points, so this could be a really big week for DK Metcalf. And if Tyler Lockett doesn't play, I expect DK Metcalf to explode. But if Tyler Lockett does play, I still think that Russell Wilson's gonna target DK Metcalf more because the 2 games that DK Metcalf's put up 2 for 23 and 2 for 28, which were against the Cardinals, and last week against the Bills. No, not the Bills. Who'd they play last week? Rams? Yeah, the Rams. Sorry. They lost. So I think it's just a thing that to be successful as a team, they need to target Russell Wilson needs to target DK Metcalf more because they need to score. They put up 16 points last week against the Rams, and it just wasn't a pretty game for the Seahawks. For my tight end position, I have picked Darren Waller. In his last 3 games, he's held under 7 yards per catch, 5 for 27, and 5 for 22. And then last week he had 3 for 37, which is over 10 yards a catch. But if you add up all those, it's 13 catches for 86 yards, and that's just not getting the job done. I mean, that's 6.6 yards per catch or something close to that. And Waller's been good, but he hasn't been amazing. And they play the Chiefs this week, which is a tough defense. And Darren Waller has been consistent, but he's only had 1 game this year over 15 fantasy points. This week, Darren Waller will have over 15 fantasy points, and for the second time this season. And I think the reason is because the Chiefs are going to have to game plan around Darren Waller, but at the same time, he gets targets, he gets catches, but he just isn't producing it into fantasy points. And I think that this week he could potentially produce into fantasy points and get over 15 fantasy points this week. My bold prediction is that Darren Waller will finish as a top 10 or top 2 tight end this week. I think he'll finish behind Travis Kelce, but that's pretty much a given because how well Travis Kelce's doing this year. But I think Darren Waller will finish as number 2 tight end, and he hasn't done that for the last 3 weeks. My bold prediction for the defense is that the Chiefs defense, which is playing against Darren Waller, the last time they played the Raiders, they gave up over 40 points, and that was their worst game as a Chiefs defense, fantasy-wise. They had negative 5 points. This week will be different. The Chiefs are going to be so far ahead in this game that the Raiders are just going to have to throw the ball and then try to keep this game close by throwing the ball. And the Chiefs have been a top 10 defense in fantasy despite 3 games this year with negative points. This week they will be a top scoring defense. The top scoring defense this week, the Chiefs. I do believe that. I also like the Chiefs' odds this week because Derek Carr is very well thrown. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. He doesn't throw a lot of bad passes. But this week, I think with being behind, they're going to have to throw the ball. So Derek Carr might throw between 38 to 50 balls this week, I think. And that is very high chance of a mistake or something involving a pick. And the Chiefs defense would be someone to do that. And they get good pressure on QBs. I like the Chiefs defense this week. I have them finishing as a top defense this week. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new. Ring the little bell if you want notifications whenever I post, so you can be the first one to watch and be the first one to like the video. Thank you. Enjoy your day. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.